was gonna do Daydream Believer, but I feel this is a little bit more relevant to what I'm going through. I just need to fess up to my problems and hide from them like a scared kid. So,
Let's get this out of the way. Consider this self-therapy. As a kid, I've always wanted to be a girl, and for as long as I can remember, I've always wanted to be seen, heard, and treated like such. But nobody else saw me like that, obviously. So, I had to do what every trans kid does. I had to act like a boy, and had to accept the fact that people will only see me by what they physically see, and not what's inside. But when I finally came out as trans, I was bullied for it. So I left the school, I went to and took up being homeschooled, which wasn't any better. I got distracted from my work, which caused my grades to get worse, and the more they got worse, the more stressed I became. The more stressed I became, the more depressed I got. The more depressed I got, the more I stopped doing my schoolwork, and this has been going on for 3 years. And this is where our review will start. We start with a story.
When I was a kid, I used to think that pork chops and karate chops were the same thing. I thought they were both pork chops. And because my grandmother thought it was cute, and because they were my favorite, she let me keep doing it. Not really a big deal. One day, before I realized fat kids are not designed to climb trees, I fell out of a tree and bruised the right side of my body. I didn't want to tell my grandmother about it because I was scared I'd get in trouble for playing somewhere I shouldn't have been. A few days later, the gym teacher noticed the bruise and I got sent to the principal's office. From there, I was sent to another small room with a really nice lady who asked me all kinds of questions about my life at home. I saw no reason to lie. As far as I was concerned, life was pretty good. I told her whenever I'm sad, my grandmother gives me karate chops. This led to a full-scale investigation, and I was removed from the house for 3 days until they finally decided to ask how I got the bruises. News of this silly little story quickly spread through the school, and I earned my first nickname, Pork Chop. To this day, I hate pork chops.
Then we start getting to the really important parts.
I'm not the only kid who grew up this way. Surrounded by people who used to say that rhyme about sticks and stones. As if broken bones hurt more than the names we got called, and we got called them all.
Getting called faggot, dumbass, retard, and fat ass may not seem like much at first, but it sticks with you, especially when you're only 9 years old in an elementary school.
So we grew up believing no one would ever fall in love with us. That we'd be lonely forever. That we'd never meet someone to make us feel like the sun was something they built for us in their tool shed. So broken heartstrings bled the blues as we tried to empty ourselves so we would feel nothing. Don't tell me that hurts less than a broken bone.
Growing up in a society that says I suck at everything I do, drawing, sports, video making, writing, singing, rapping, and so on. Growing up, I heard all this, and it sticks with me to this day. I hate everything I produce, but I still push through, hoping that one day I can look back and see I've gotten better. But sadly, I'm stuck comparing myself to people who are better than me, who claim they suck, which leaves me to believe that I'm just some waste of space.
That an ingrown life is something surgeons can cut away, that there's no way for it to metastasize. It does. She was 8 years old. Our first day of grade 3 when she got called ugly. We both got moved to the back of class so we would stop getting bombarded by spitballs. But the school halls were a battleground where we found ourselves outnumbered day after wretched day. We used to stay inside for recess because outside was worse. Outside we'd have to rehearse running away or learn to stay still like statues, giving no clues that we were there in grade 5. They taped a sign to the front of her desk that read, "Beware of dog." To this day, despite a loving husband, she doesn't think she's beautiful because of a birthmark that takes up a little less than half her face. Kids used to say she looks like a wrong answer that someone tried to erase but couldn't quite get the job done. And they'll never understand that she's raising two kids whose definition of beauty begins with the word mom. Because they see her heart before they see her skin. Because she's only ever always been amazing.
To this day, I can't believe anyone who says that they'll treat me like a girl, because as humans, we only see what is skin deep. We don't take the chance to get to know anyone, and so we just sit there judging people by how they look. Their hair is messy, they must never wash. Their hair is long, they must be a stoner. Their clothes are large, they must be awful at sports. They're tall, they must play basketball. I've heard all of these directed at me over and over again, and that's what this poem is trying to say at this point. When you've grown up hearing the same shit over and over again, you start to believe it's true, and then you start getting depressed.
Was a broken branch grafted onto a different family tree. Adopted. Not because his parents opted for a different destiny. He was 3 when it became a mixed drink of 1 part left alone and 2 parts tragedy. Started therapy in 8th grade. Had a personality made up of tests and pills. Lived like the uphills were mountains and the downhills were cliffs. 4/5 suicidal.
This is why I hide my depression and sorrows. I know that if I don't, I'll wind up in therapy sessions taking antidepressants with a false attitude and personality towards things. Sure, I want help. I don't know anyone who gets sad that doesn't want help. But I don't want my help to turn me artificial.
Tidal wave of antidepressants and an adolescence being called pauper. 1 part because of the pills, 99 parts because of the cruelty.
And people wonder why I hate society. Because society is a cruel monster that figures out what you hate the most about yourself and exploits it in a way that makes you hate yourself more and more. This is what causes suicides and mass murder, not fucking video games and television.
He tried to kill himself in grade 10 when a kid who could still go home to mom and dad had the audacity to tell him, get over it. As if depression is something that can be remedied by any of the contents found in a first aid kit.
It's not even my family that I can't tell. Sure, a family will tell you to get over it, but it's not like friends that'll tell you it's your fault that you're depressed. It's your fault that you're hard on yourself. It's your fault that you want to commit suicide. And to anyone who does tell their child or friend to get over it or that it's their fault, fuck you, because you're part of the problem.
To this day, he is a stick of TNT lit from both ends. Could describe to in detail the way the sky bends in the moments before it's about to fall. And despite an army of friends who all call him an inspiration, he remains a conversation piece between people who can't understand. Sometimes being drug-free has less to do with addiction and more to do with sanity. We weren't the only kids who grew up this way. To this day, kids are still being called names. The classics were hey stupid, hey spaz. Seems like every school has an arsenal of names getting updated every year. And if a kid breaks in a school and no one around chooses to hear, do they make a sound? Or they're just background noise from a soundtrack stuck on repeat when people say things like kids can be cruel?
I think this speaks for itself.
Every school was a big top circus tent, and the pecking order went from acrobats to lion tamers, from clowns to carnies. All of these miles ahead of who we were freaks. Lobster-clawed boys and bearded ladies. Oddities juggling depression and loneliness, playing solitaire, spin the bottle, trying to kiss the wounded parts of ourselves and heal. But at night, while the others slept, we kept walking the tightrope. It was practice, and yes, some of us fell. But I want to tell them that all of this is just debris left over when we finally decide to smash all the things we thought we used to be. And if you can't see anything beautiful about yourself, get a better mirror. Look a little closer. Stare a little longer. Because there's something inside you that made you keep trying despite everyone who told you to quit. You built a cast around your broken heart and signed it yourself. You signed it. They were wrong.
And this right here is where things pick up. To those of you who are like me and have pushed further despite 4 attempts of suicide and no one to support you, you have kept trying. That's why you're either watching this video or have watched Shane's video. You have pushed on, and that's something special.
Because maybe you didn't belong to a group or a clique. Maybe they decided to pick you last for basketball or everything. Maybe you used to bring bruises and broken teeth to show and tell but never told. Because how can you hold your ground if everyone around you wants to bury you beneath it? You have to believe that they were wrong. They have to be wrong. Why else would we still be here? We grew up learning to cheer on the underdog because we see ourselves in them. We stem from a root planted in the belief that we are not what we were called. We are not abandoned cars stalled out and sitting empty on some highway. And if in some way we are, don't worry. We only got out to walk and get gas. We are graduating members from the class of We Made It. Not the faded echoes of voices crying out names will never hurt me. Of course, they did. But our lives will only ever always continue to be a balancing act that has less to do with pain and more to do with beauty.
I'm Doodle Tones, and I'll see you next time with a very special episode of Crappy Cartoons.